They locked you in your home when you should have been outside, right? That was a terrible mistake.
Yeah.
They gave you a novel vaccine when you should have been taking vitamin D, right? Across the board, they did the inverse of the right thing, and we still don't know why. So my point really
Well,
is...
we can, I think it's pretty fair to say why in some
Well,
cases.
if you know, I want to know. I'm still not sure I know.
Well, I mean, to sell vaccines, right? Even though they were free to the public, the government's coughing up the cash for it. So, yeah, absolutely to sell vaccines. I mean, and here, I mean, the evidence that I see that shows that. I mean, seems kind of obvious, but one specific instance was, you're probably are you familiar with how natural immunity was removed from the WHO's website? So that tells me, and also the timing of it, Brett, the timing of it. It was removed, I believe, just before or just after the Pfizer's first press release on trials for the vaccine. So, I mean, it's just the correlation's pretty amazing there. And then all of a sudden, they removed it completely. They did bring it back maybe a month or so later after the emergency authorization.
Right.
And it's just so amazing. And they also brought it back on New Year's Eve, when most people wouldn't really notice. And also, and they also brought it back. They added different, context, saying that they do not think or advocate for treating or curing the pandemic with natural immunity, but vaccines. So they changed that as when they brought it back, of course.
Okay, but let's go back to your premise. They did it to sell vaccines. That makes logical sense to me. But I find it so shocking, given the danger involved in inoculating people with this highly novel gene therapy technology. The idea that they would attempt to inoculate children, that they would push to have those so-called vaccines put on the regular vaccine schedule, that they would do so on the basis of very little testing, in some cases, no human testing at all. Mm-hmm. That is a level of indifference to harm to other people's children that I find very difficult to imagine. So are you saying that the policy that you saw simply makes sense to you as people who don't care that they are killing innocents?
Well, I think the majority of people advocating for vaccines for everybody are not motivated to sell more vaccines. But I mean, certainly, there's no question Pfizer is motivated by profit to sell more vaccines. And, and then those in power, it's great political tool. It was a great weapon to wield against Donald Trump, right? He's weak on COVID, and COVID is this, incredibly dangerous thing that's life-threatening to everybody, was the way it was, kind of framed. So that's another motivation, right? Just political reasons. If you can fearmonger, if people are afraid, they're easier to control. And you keep your eyes glued to the news, more clicks. There's all these factors. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I see them too, and I know that I have said many times that whatever motivated this policy, it is clear that the people who architected it are completely indifferent to the death of other people.
Yeah.
So there is a part of me that I think the problem is, intuitively, it doesn't feel like it could be true. But logically speaking, there's really no next nearest competitor. In fact, the least worst explanation is that this was simple greed. There are explanations worse than that, but the floor is they did it to sell vaccines and they didn't care who got hurt, which is an amazing fact to be. If that's really what's going on, it is an amazing thing to have witnessed. Terrifying.
But it's happened before, hasn't it? With the H1N flu, right? Swine flu, the vaccines, right?
Well, yes. On the other hand, in prior cases, we've pulled vaccines from the market because of safety signals that were a lot less impressive than the one that the mRNA vaccines generated. So, yes, it's nothing here is unprecedented, including indifference to the suffering and death of other people. But the scale of it, it boggles the mind.
Yeah. Yeah. All happened on a global scale. I mean, you had the WHO saying, quote, "Nobody is safe until everybody is safe." And that was echoed in the US media. It's one of the mashups I've got in the works, and they just kept repeating, "Nobody is safe unless everybody's safe until everybody's safe." When the reality was, at 99.5% of people were safe at its worst.
Almost everybody was safe from the beginning, and worse. Again, this is something that you won't be in a position to comment on in all likelihood, but if we had done nothing, right? Nothing, including not applied the very good drugs that we had available to us. If we had simply done nothing, there is a pretty good likelihood that this thing would have controlled itself. That now that we understand that the proliferation of variants is actually driven by this very narrow vaccination campaign, we, not only is the entire pandemic likely a self-inflicted wound with a laboratory escape, but what we did compounded that self-inflicted wound. We keep inflicting new wounds on ourselves. And I think the most important question in the entire pandemic might be how much of the harm that was done here after the thing was already spreading was iatrogenic, medically induced harm that, yes, the cost would have been very high. Many would have died. But would it have been more or fewer who died if we had done nothing and just simply allowed natural immunity to accumulate?